Honorable Minister, Dr. Ngcaba, members of Parliament present here today, the leadership of SALGA, the leadership of the department, industry leaders present here, the CEO of FTTX, Council Africa, the board, and ladies and gentlemen, please welcome. Again, it's a great honor for me to talk to you this morning and open this event and welcome the minister who's going to give us a keynote, and thank everybody for coming. And really, we are very proud that, Minister, we have people from West Africa here, East Africa, and Southern Africa who are attending this event. And we sincerely would like to thank even our international guests who are here today, really for coming all the way and talk to us and share various experiences about what is happening in this very interesting industry. Last night, Minister, I was coming out of the event that we had, and I was traveling by Uber back to the hotel, and the driver of Uber is from Pumpkin. He then asked me, why am I in Cape Town? So I told him that we are here attending Fiber and we will be talking about cloud. And he said, thank you very much, really, now that we have rain in Cape Town, that you guys have brought some cloud discussions in this town. And I really said that those are the wonders that cloud computing can do. We brought some rain in Cape Town. I think we are here to discuss, the next generation, what this technology can do to us, how we connect cities and how we connect, small cities in the African continent, how we connect big metros, and how we connect towns, various businesses, government offices, etc. I think we all can see the change that is taking place in this industry, that the speeds we are talking about are way beyond, anyone's expectation. That the layers that we knew before are collapsing because of software. That the way in which we understood Ethernet and DWDM or optical layer, again, that environment is again changing because of software. Next week, the whole industry in the world, Minister, is gathering in Netherlands to discuss virtualization, software-defined networks, and the way in which our industry is changing. It's all provided by the transport layer, which we are going to talk about in the next 2 days. Minister, we are again, together we work with SALGA in a number of activities that we do, and in looking at how best we can engage municipalities in driving connectivity in smaller towns of our country. Again, metros and high-speed connectivity, because we have to think about IoT and how we can make these networks ready for connectivity of the future, in our case, the Internet of Things. The network is no more going to be the same as before. We are no more talking about routers and switches. We are talking about a network that is driven by software, a network that sits on the cloud, a network that is driven by virtual appliances. This is the network that we are really talking about today. Of course, we cannot really not talk about bridging the digital divide because, as most of the people in the country have mobile connectivity, we still need to address the issue of broadband connectivity, in particular, in homes, both in townships, in urban areas, and in small towns. Again, we say that optic fiber is the railroad of the future. It is the railroad of the future because today the internet is driven by optic fiber. It's driven by, this infrastructure that all of you here today represent. Without the players that are here, we cannot build this future network whereby we can be able to slice it, we can be able to scale it, and we can be able to drive it and make it agile and make it, self-healing and make a network that is self-organizing. This is the type of the architecture that we will be discussing today. I'm sure, we all talk about, there are people who are going to be talking about IoT and how, again, this infrastructure of ours is going to drive that industry. We clearly can see the development of different standards of IoT and various communities, but I think the fundamental issue, what will actually make us able to protect our industry is to ensure that there's cybersecurity in everything that we do. We have seen in the recent past a lot of hacks that have been taking place. We have seen a lot of activities that have happened that disrupted, SCADA. It's very critical that, electrical infrastructure, power line infrastructure, water, and all these, as we build optic fiber infrastructure, can be protected. Now, there are a number of leaders who now, as I've talked about, that collapse of the layers, for instance, above Ethernet. There are a number of players who have started to show interesting, developments in the area of, whether you want to call it from layer 3 right up. People who have built these standard that ETSI developed, the standard of network function virtualization. It's something that as an industry we need in this country and in this continent, we need to begin to look how, for instance, in the infrastructure we're building, we can actually factor the developments that, for instance, have been laid out by ETSI since 2012. Network function virtualization is here. The issues, the old days of MPLS are going away, and that, the way in which you architect the network is no more going to be the same again. Again, we will be talking about how, for instance, what is called gigahomes will be deployed, how these high-speed infrastructure will be deployed in schools, in clinics, and in various parts, in homes and businesses, because critical today is the ability to provide this very high capacity, high throughput infrastructure in order to be able to drive connected cars or in order to be able to drive all the things that have to be connected onto the network. Gone are the days that the network is seen as purely something for voice or for data. By 2020 to 2030, terabit connectivity is going to be coming into buildings. Today, a number of blades that are being developed by companies are able to give you gigabit speeds in various, for instance, branches or in various premises that today are being built. Again, this is being facilitated by the optic fiber infrastructure that you here are key players in building and developing. I must say that as I move up the stack, today the new technologies that are changing this environment is that virtualization or those virtual machines that are being built as now the software layer above, for instance, the Ethernet layer of our infrastructure. These are driven by the new tools of software that today characterize the infrastructure that we have. Because, in the olden days of Marius and others, everything was almost a physical infrastructure that you have to see on the edge, you have to see at access level, but all these things are very much software-driven, are driven by these containers and microservices using virtual machines, virtual appliances, basically. This is the industry we are getting into. As I always say, this is even worse than the change that we saw from the original TDM to IP communications. It's a total transformation of the network. Today, for instance, the way in which I can give an analogy of what we see in the way in which we build networks today is an example of ways. How, for instance, if you load Waze as an app, you can actually understand the traffic ahead of you. The way network gets routed or traffic gets routed today, the network itself is able to learn. The network itself is able to provide, machine learning tools to better understand the traffic that is flowing within the network and be able to self-correct and be able, for instance, to find the routes that it can use to go to the destination where the IP packets are supposed to go. The leaders here are the likes of Google, Amazon, and Microsoft, who are the leaders in the cloud environment. I was talking to someone earlier today asking them if they do, for instance, use Google FI, which is a platform that you can use anywhere in the world as means to communicate. Tomorrow you will be able, using the Amazon portal, buy connectivity, whether you are sitting in Cape Town or Johannesburg. The connectivity that will be provided by any of you as infrastructure providers. This is how you will buy connectivity or any service going into the future. The infrastructure, Minister, that we're building is to prepare for 5G. As we all know that 2 years from now, World Radio Conference will make a decision about the standards with regards to the frequencies that are to be used for 5G, the leading frequencies and trials that are being used, and the number of OEMs, in particular in the semiconductor environment, is between 26 and 28 gigahertz. These are millimeter wave spectrum. The critical question that a lot of people are asking is, are we ready as the African continent, for instance, to deploy such infrastructure immediately by 2020? Are regulators ready? Are people ready to say when such a standard is decided by the ITU, us as an industry, are we able to deploy such infrastructure? 5G is a platform. It's no more seen as a network. It's no more seen as purely a spectrum-based type infrastructure. It's a platform. It's a platform that is scalable. It's a platform that you can segment. It's a platform that a number of people can sit on it and provide different services. It's a platform for IoT. The way in which one would basically explain how 5G is going to operate is that 5G infrastructure will sit on the cloud. The core will be on the cloud, the edge will be on the cloud, the RAN will be on the cloud, and you can be able to scale all these services and provide, for instance, to multiple operators, variety of different type of solutions. Because 5G will use modern technologies such as, for instance, machine learning technology. I mean, there will be new releases today. For instance, 3GPP is using release 15. There is a push for release 16 and 17 as we go to 2019 World Radio Conference. The latency is expected to reach about 1 millisecond. I mean, this is something unheard of in the industry. I mean, some of us, we thought that, 15, 20 years ago, latency of 20 milliseconds was great enough. I mean, this infrastructure is going to give us 1 millisecond, latency. The critical question that we now have to look at when we talk about 5G, if you think before, in the first, second, third, and fourth generation, most of the backhaul in first, second, and third was driven by microwave. You cannot build 5G on any of the old point-to-point links, even using, E-band capacity. You will need to provide optic fiber infrastructure to drive 5G development. The way in which one would probably say is that 1 to 4 was about voice and data. 5G is about cloud, IoT, AI, video, and connecting drones and connecting things and cars, etc. And therefore, one would not see this more from a point of view of how you regulate it. The key question is how you enable it to happen. How you enable this infrastructure, for instance, to drive the future of connected things. Some of the technologies that are being used at a software level is a new type of programmable technology, which is different to the way in which those people who come from COBOL or C or Fortran, is the DevOps model. This is what create these containerized management solution and how you orchestrate on the network using technology. It's all based on open source and open APIs. This is the good thing with network function virtualization. It's no more something that when you have to change one part of the network, you actually have to change the whole stack. You can actually change programmably that part of technology that you want, for instance, as and when you want to change it. The most important roots in the way in which we build the infrastructure is connecting, data centers. Again, data centers are the heart of our industry. All of us, we want to terminate and originate from data centers. This is what everybody is busy doing in different parts of the continent. And therefore, we really would like to encourage our respective members to continue to do this, to make sure that as we build the infrastructure, we can bring quality, we can bring a whole range of activities at a data center level, and be able to make sure that these platforms are very, very available to as many people as possible. I mean, video is almost going to constitute 80% of the content that sits in our data centers today in different parts of the continent, because video is going to drive the internet. Video is going to drive home connectivity. This is where the internet is going. The most critical issue, Minister, in all what we're doing is going to be about how policy, how legislation, how regulation, again, move with the same speed as all the things that we are doing. So we would like to commit ourselves as the industry that we want to work with yourselves, we want to work with SALGA, we want to work with different other governments in the African continent to ensure that leading to 5G, the infrastructure that we are building is ready, and that we can be able to assist in ensuring that, any enabling policies or legislation can be ready so that we can move quick in going into the next generation of technology. I must say, as I prepare to sit down, that I suppose most of you are aware of GDPR. This is the policy that was passed by the EU about in 2016, effective from May next year. It's very important, colleagues, that if you are a contact center or business process organization or data center or any carrier, to understand this regulation, because it talks about how to protect European data, for instance, that passes through your network, how to make sure that data of European citizens, you will be liable as a third party if you do not, for instance, follow this particular policy or regulation that EU gazetted in 2016. I think we all must be aware of it. It does impact you, irrespective of whether you are sitting in Europe or not. It is very important. Lastly, the critical issue that is very important to our industry is quality. Quality in terms of the people we train, quality in terms of the fiber we put, either in electricity poles or in poles, and the way in which we run and manage our respective manholes and the infrastructure that we lay. I use an example of TUV, which is a German-based quality measuring platform or organization that, as the African continent minister, this is what we hope as FTTX we will develop to make sure that our members and our community can adhere to high quality of service in the way in which we build the infrastructure. In saying so, really I want to thank the minister and the minister from SADC who are here, members of parliament, the CEO of SALGA, and various players. Also want to thank my colleagues, the board of FTTH, for really putting this together, and the CEO and staff, and all those who really have made sure that, this event must be successful. In that note, I would really like to welcome you, Minister, and thank you for coming, and invite you to open up the conference. Thank you.